A society becomes totalitarian when its structure becomes flagrantly artificial. That is when its ruling class has lost its function, but succeeds in clinging to power by force or fraud.
Why not?
What are bands supposed to dress like?
I understand we have
What is this? Is this even real?
Artists come and go. A select few get big while most never find success. It's the well-known nature of the beast, the very way of the industry. And as much as it might sting to hear it, seldom do these nobodies who never make it end up being hidden gems. The vast majority of music that goes unheard is just that. More music that failed to attract an audience. It's why there's so much mystique around those hidden gems that do get dug up. Artists like Failure, or especially The Replacements, both great examples of this phenomena. They're bands that, when you revisit them, they show you just how much potential was missed, becoming the fabled your favorite band's favorite band. Though what's even rarer than those mythical hidden gems are the bands that come around and don't just have the potential to be huge and simply miss the boat, but also carry such poignant and striking messages within their music. And messages that, as the years go by, only become more and more pressing. INNERPARTYSYSTEM was a band from the late 2000s who were given the short end of every stick that they pulled. They were a band whose sound was both too late and too early to the party. And they were a band who wrote one of the greatest electronic rock albums ever made. That just so happened to not only predict much of the cultural apathy and digital isolation that's come to dominate the modern era, but outright acted as a bit of a warning of what was on the horizon during that time period. Their self-titled debut is an album with a warning, one that we failed to hear, and one that has only become more and more relevant as it's aged. While the group themselves have disbanded and gone their separate ways over a decade ago at this point, I still find myself returning back to them and sitting in awe of just how spot on they were with the criticism of culture and society. So, without further ado, why don't we talk about the warning that we ignored? Why don't we give this hidden gem a second chance and talk about INNERPARTYSYSTEM?
We are INNERPARTYSYSTEM! You can feel
Inner Party System was formed out of the ashes of Jared Bacone and Patrick Neasley's previous project, 13/8, a more conventional nu metal style project from the early 2000s. Come 2006, the pair would split off and start their own little group called The Takeover, that would quickly evolve into a 4-piece group and would rename themselves to Inner Party System. And while this all sounds like the inconsequential stuff that every band does when they form, going through different names and member lists, the rebranding here would actually be far more important than most would assume. The name Inner Party System was chosen because it's a reference to George Orwell's most well-known work and warning of his own, 1984. 1984 is an often oversighted book that countless people love to reference without ever picking it up and fucking reading it. Now, that being said, there is a good reason as to why it's a title that has become a reference in of itself to government overreach, censorship, and totalitarianism. The book is host to many horrifying ideas and concepts that would come to define our modern idea of dystopia. Rather than just being the conception of a corrupt leader holding power by all means necessary and sending people into a perpetual Stone Age or perpetual slave class, 1984 sets itself apart is in its own awful ideas of systems of oppression and power dynamics that would be needed to sedate, demoralize, and alienate a populace in order to keep them under control. This is the book that introduced ideas like newspeak, which is a simplified and destructive form of language used to keep people from being able to think freely, limit their ability to communicate, and negatively affect critical thinking, which goes hand in hand with one of its other ideas, which is thought crime, a term I'm sure you've heard all over the internet over the last 10 years, but this is actually its origin. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's, well, you could probably guess. It imposes onto the populace the idea of fear and criminal thoughts. A fear of thinking criminally or in a way that the government might not want you to, holding opinions or ideas that go against the government and leadership. And it's something that limits someone's internal thoughts due to this fear, stealing even the freedom that comes from being in your own head, stealing that privacy from you and making you a prisoner of your own mind. 1984 is no joke, and it's a book that's definitely earned its reputation. But where this all ties back to the band itself is, like I said, in the name. In 1984, the Inner Party was the upper class, consisting of the upper echelon of the population. It takes the role as a counterpart of the real world's 1%. The people who live in indulgence and luxury while pushing and enforcing the law as well as the will of Big Brother onto the rest of society, all while they indulge in every sin imaginable, while the rest of the world gets to rot in poverty and hardship. When asked about it, Jared Bacone stated, "Social classes were defined as the inner party and outer party, and the working class. It sounds really holier than thou. When you say it, we're really not this full of ourselves, but we liked the idea of creating this full, multimedia, overstimulating, elitist environment that we were trying to invite everyone into. It's the ironic elitist class." The name Inner Party System might sound a bit silly to most who are unfamiliar with its origins, especially given the context of the late 2000s, as it kinda just sounds like another shitty MySpace artist making ear-grating indie pop.
So if you go away right now, then I can guarantee that
But it's actually extremely fitting with the ironic nature of its origin. Inner Party System might have some danceable beats and bass lines to their music, but the lyrics, atmosphere, and overall tone, even from day one, was anything but a party. The music was drenched in socio-political satire, discontentment with where the world was heading to, and a clear disgust with modern culture. And it's that silly little name that would be the indication to the audience of just what they were getting into. It also served as a bit of a guide or a credo for the band and its message. Now, come 2007, INNERPARTYSYSTEM would put out their first offering to the world, a demo-turned EP titled The Download EP. It's 24 minutes of groundwork being laid, with each song giving a small taste of what was to come. 2 of the tracks off this thing would later appear on the band's debut full-length, those being Don't Stop and Heart of Fire, but since they appear later on, we won't really talk about them here. Rather, I'd like to talk about the album's more standout track and the one that I think cuts to the core of what this EP laid the groundwork for, and that would be the desperate and mournful song Lovers Dancing. It's very upbeat and carries itself with an overbearingly remorseful atmosphere. The track has a driving drum beat and bass line that slightly descends at the end of every measure, complemented by soaring yet melancholic vocals that guide the instruments as they play. Though it's the lyrics here that are the main standout of the song, keeping us grounded in the world that the EP presents to us. Now they can tell our hearts are heavy. You can tell it in our voice. This will give them all of the reason now, and we won't have a choice. As hopeless as it may have been, the love still moving through my hands, I'm building and making a beautiful thing that will never be made again. This is the second verse of the song, giving us a look at how our protagonist sees his crumbling environment, feeling the heaviness and uncertainty of the world around him. It's a frivolous world that's quickly crumbling, and where the very nature of human relationships is also falling to pieces. And in a more intimate sense, he starts to notice this and realize that the same thing is happening within his lover, and it's clearly too little too late. The hopelessness of the situation sets in, and as the song fades out, we hear the final few words of the track. They are the lovers dancing, so motionless alone. They're the lovers dancing, so hopeless and alone. On the surface, this can sound like just another track regarding empty and shattered relationships, but given the nature of the rest of the EP's lyrics, it makes it feel a lot more profound, and it gives us a glimpse into the lonely and hollow nature of not just the world, but the characters themselves, reflecting an increasingly alienating and isolating society that's tearing them apart. But given the situation, and the harsh cold of the world presented, all they can really do is keep dancing, distracting themselves from the emptiness that's eating them alive.
Has the economy got you down? Are you fat, ugly, impotent, depressed? Well, then you need a new come down and see me. Crazy Pat. Inner Party System emote. Price is so low, you'll think we're... In fact, we're gonna trade you a brand new car for...
Your soul! That's right, we're giving away cars for souls. You weren't using yours anyway.
We'll throw in a free CD. It's the music of the devil. But I love it. Here at the Inner Party System, we've lost it.
In 2008, the magnum opus of the band would come in the form of their debut and only full-length, the eponymous self-titled album. A record that is just under an hour and takes everything promised from the Download EP and transforms it into a large, uncompromising, and hauntingly beautiful experience. To say that INNERPARTYSYSTEM is a once-in-a-lifetime album is a bit of an understatement. It's a record that is close to 15 years old and still sounds like it could have been released just yesterday. The album is a massive step up in both production quality and songwriting, as well as it fits the name of the band and, well, itself a bit more closely, because the whole thing captures everything that the band represented and goes above and beyond what anyone could have expected from a debut. When I say that INNERPARTYSYSTEM tried to give us a warning, I actually mean it. The world, situations, and overall feel of this album are those of a decaying, corrupt society that not only reflects the one from the book the band's name originates from, but actually one that is much more realistic and believable in regards to our own, and one that we seem to be progressing further and further towards as the record ages. INNERPARTYSYSTEM starts off with Die Tonight, Live Forever, a nasty club track drenched in distorted synths and pounding percussion. It gives us a bit of a reprieve with ambience and Patrick's soft vocals in the pre-chorus before we're once again thrown into the darkness. And, as with The Lovers Dancing, it's the lyrics here that are a bit of a standout. You can see the plastic dripping off her face. We may not all be pretty, but we feel pretty fake. A simple but telling line that describes the fading beauty of our fake and self-obsessed culture, and when combined with the chorus, is very telling in its description. If this night should take my life, we've got nothing left. If we all should die tonight, we've got nothing left. A depressing admission of the emptiness that we've embraced in our society as it's decayed into a bit of a nihilistic hellscape. And if we look at the video, it's a party anthem style song and video with girls taking a night in the town, but is shot like a horror film with this terribly dark, contrasted lighting. And as these girls continue on their night of debauchery, they become more distorted and monstrous in their presentation and physical appearance. This track is followed up by an instant change of pace with the song Last Night in Brooklyn, a slower tempo song about a drug-riddled one-night stand where Patrick sings about being intoxicated at a party and sleeping with a foreign model, only to find himself alone and unfulfilled the next morning. This track really delves into the loathsome feeling most of us know all too well from chasing such hollow pleasure like a one-night stand and intoxication, only for that realization that we gave up on the things that truly made us happy in our frivolous pursuits. When combined with the album's introduction, it paints a picture of a hollow existence, one where the only meaning to be found is in hedonism and distractible moments. This is one of those predictions I mentioned at the beginning. When this album was released, it was only at the beginning of social media's adoption by the mainstream. Even in 2008, as popular as MySpace may have been, it wasn't this massive thing that everyone was using. It was still predominantly a youth culture, a youth-based website, and predominantly was infested by alternative culture. The idea of iPad children and dopamine-destroying masses wasn't even really a concept yet. And while the world was definitely already on track to this sort of society, the 2008 recession had only just begun, and for the most part, life up to this record's release was still relatively normal outside of the obvious political upheaval that happened post 9/11. And while there's always been hedonism and materialist culture in the United States and the West in general, if you were around for the time, then you probably know what I mean by saying it was much different and it was far less destructive, at least in a very obvious sense of the way that we can see it directly today. And given the characters in these songs and the way that they're painted, the social norms that they embody feel much closer to how things are today than they were back in 2008. The following track on the album is the band's most well-known song to date, Don't Stop. A brilliantly produced industrial rock song that cuts deep with its lyrics. The track details sacrificing your life for fame in the entertainment industry. Patrick embraces narcissism to cover up his shame for his evil deeds. The road I walk is paved in gold, to glorify my platinum soul. I'm the closest thing to God, so worship me and never stop. It describes how, despite the fact that the entertainment has become nothing more than propaganda, the masses still embrace it and outright worship the celebrities that see them as little more than pathetic insects to step on. This is entertainment. Lies are entertainment. You are down on your knees, begging me for more. It's actually almost comical how popular this song got at the time, considering it was released during the height of reality TV. It goes to show just how little people pay attention to the lyrics and messages of songs, given that it outright mocks the same people who would have been dancing to it during the time of it playing on Fuse. But where this plays into the modern day is in how close it actually resembles the modern idea of the social media influencer. The kind of people who sell their souls in order to gain mass audiences. They can both exploit for cash, as well as feed their insecurity-laced narcissism. It's malice with a smile that costs nothing but your credibility, privacy, and ethics. Don't Stop is followed up by Structure, a song delving into the idea of changing and possibly even finding God and being born again if the "when the water turned to wine" line is to be taken as such. The lyrics on this track are actually pretty beautiful if they are haunting. Patrick sings of a person who once lived a decadent lifestyle of drinking and lust, a lifestyle that led them to feel empty and void. In the chorus, Patrick begs to know why they changed. It's an incredibly relatable form of grief when someone outgrows us in their lifestyle and their journey on planet Earth. The nights are getting cold, those faces growing old, and there's nothing you can do. So sing your sad excuses. You've got the scars to prove it, and I'm sure they'll sing along. Everyone is the Same follows next and feels like a part 2 to Structure. The track has a much more poppy and light sound to it and details Patrick fighting with himself over the life that he lives, talking about wanting to see the higher end of life but not relating to it, and even if he did, not being able to afford it. A realization that he really isn't one of the inner party that the album and the band's name refers to. The track ending with Patrick asking what the listener would do if they were somebody else. Now, to take a bit of a step back, the album so far has served as a bit of a tale of cause and effect. The songs at the beginning were mostly about hedonistic pleasure, overindulgence, and decadence, and later presenting us with the idea of a corrupt society and world with the song Don't Stop. A world that is full of political corruption and social control through media, where the populace is sedated by their own selfish desires for fame. But after that point, the album splits off with the next few tracks, giving us a bit of the come down, a realization of how bad things really are, and the soul-destroying isolation that comes from living a lifestyle of hollow pleasure in a world that is ultimately meaningless, and materialism is all you have.
I'm in a room, and there is something wrong.
This Empty Love is my personal favorite song that the band ever made, and it is an incredibly moving track, in both its brilliant production and its cutting and emotional lyrics. The song starts off with a shrill but hollow synth chord, something similar to what you would hear from Akira Yamaoka in many of his Silent Hill soundtracks. This chord progression is later joined by a groovy but simple bass line and a drum machine, following an almost breath-like pattern as they go up and down, leaving empty space for all the sounds to ring out, while Patrick's soft and somber voice floats above it all. As the track plays out, it evolves into a heavily layered and intense song, with Patrick's vocals taking on a much more powerful and direct tone. Though as great as this is, it's the lyrics that really steal the show. The verses describe the uncomfortable and dreadful feeling of leaving a one-night stand after a night of partying and sweet nothings. Hence the title of the song, This Empty Love.
I leave the bed to gather up my clothes. She covers up her skin. I'm moving for the door. She says, "If you walk out now, this is the last time that we speak." You tell her that you love her, so then how could you love me? Don't make promises that you can't keep. Her eyes are open.
The choruses, on the other hand, just repeat the name of the song, letting the music and atmosphere really convey the emotion of the moment. It's all just perfect in my opinion, and if you listen to just one song off this album, it really should be this one. The next track to follow is New Poetry, a song about embracing a toxic relationship, yet again, in an attempt to find meaning in a society that has nothing to offer but materialism and hedonistic pleasure. Also, the song is pretty fucking catchy.
You know I love you, but you might be the death of me. Hold me down, suffocating, please let me breathe. Kiss, kiss, lights out, I've got to...
Now, after our constant embraces of hedonism and the emptiness that comes with it, and the lack of any meaning due to materialism that the album has really beaten into the ground by this point, we get to switch up with the track This Town Will Be Your Grave, where both musically and lyrically, things are really beginning to change, and that mopiness turns to something a lot more meaningful. The music on this song is upbeat and heavy, leading into the band's more industrial influences. And even the lyrics on this track are much more gritty and cutting than the last few songs, which focused on hedonism. This Town Will Be Your Grave is about being stuck in a society that's embraced nihilism, where everyone has become a shell of the people that they could have been, living in the regret of the choices that they made, a place where the masses reach out desperately for any sort of meaning, for something more, only to find that they all have nothing. And in the end, their lives have meant nothing.
The cross they bear, a burden that they just can't stand. They're holding on to nothing. Time is slipping through their hands. So easily they point the finger, the first time past the blame. While we will be the future, and you will never change.
Brutal and cold. But I can't say that the song is wrong in terms of its view on how much complacency and acceptance can lead to stagnation and decay. Heart of Fire is a song that was previously released on the Download EP, but it's here that we get to hear it in its full glory. In the context of the album, it also fits much better. The track details Patrick embracing the lies of modern relationships and trying to numb the void he feels eating at him by sharing it with those around him.
I remember you from a better time. Conversations saturated with telling lies. All this comes back to the love. The love I spoke with honest and pure eyes. Now I remember what I had done. Something meaningful to get you and fall in love. It was easier to tell you everything that you want to hear.
With the context of the full album, this song hits way harder than it ever could have alone. And its more upbeat and major scale feel in the instrumental is something that clashes perfectly with the final song on the album, What We Will Never Know, where Heart of Fire served as a reprieve from the downbeat and sad tone of the album, in its instrumental at least. What We Will Never Know revels in its depressive atmosphere.
The fire came and went, took everything away.
The fire came and went and took everything away. The bruises never healed. So I try to take a breath to say what wasn't said, but there's nothing left of me. Now there is nothing left.
This verse really captures the tone of the record, where after living a life of nihilistic decadence and chasing hedonism to fill the void that society has left inside of him, Patrick now confronts the cold and depressing reality of the dystopian world that he lives in, something the entire record has tried to convey, talking about living in excess, hedonism, celebrity worship, only to be governed and lorded by primal impulses in a world filled with apathy, and one that mirrors our own. From here, the album's story comes to an end, with its outro track Home leaving us in a dark and haunting ambience, the darkness of the world that we created.
Friends, we have gathered here this morning to hold our heads high and join our hands in the friendship and goodness of the inner-party system. So on this morning, my brothers and sisters, reach into your hearts and reach into your wallets and checkbooks. For the inner-party system does not care about your faith, but faith is only truly proven through financial repentance. Financial liberation will lead you to eternal salvation. Liberate yourselves, my brothers and sisters. 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 Liberate yourselves and become one with the inner-party system.
After the self-titled album dropped, the band supported it on the Vans Warped Tour, as well as over the next 2 years, embarking on quite a few different tours both through America and Europe, though Island Records would let them go not long into this, with Red Bull Music becoming the band's unlikely new home. Though this change would end up bringing the end to the project. Before departing, INNERPARTYSYSTEM would release their final EP, Never Be Content, a release that would end up being the band's swan song. Never Be Content would make a big shift in their overall sound, letting the industrial and rock influences take a bit of a back seat and their more EDM and electronic elements take center stage. Keep in mind, this was during the explosion that was deadmau5 hitting the mainstream, Daft Punk returning after a long hiatus with the Tron soundtrack, and Skrillex's infamous rise to world domination would be in full effect with the bro step wave. So INNERPARTYSYSTEM played a bit more into this wave, and while I do think their previous work is a bit more cohesive, the EDM shift actually does work in their favor, as the scathing satire and social criticisms are much more direct on this record. Their dystopian warnings take a much different direction this time around, focusing less on hedonism, toxic interpersonal relationships, and giving us a more character window into the world. Here, they just take a straight aim at the social decay in the systems that we rely on here in the modern age. The EP starts off with the instrumental song And Together, a house-style track with little to no lyrics, mainly here to set a false sense of positivity. It creates a faux positive party atmosphere, only for it to fade out and lead into the next song where the mask really begins to fall off.
Build it up, make it work, keep turning it out, keep pushing, keep spending, got everything now. Get paper, get check, get gold around neck. 'Cause
Money Makes the World Go Round is a track whose message is found right in the title. Carrying on that EDM-focused sound of the previous track, Money Makes the World Go Round is a catchy song with lyrics mocking the so-called high life, only to lead us to the chorus describing just how dependent we are on the money system. The entire song is a scathing attack on those who focus their entire life around money and production, calling out just how profit-focused our world has become in its false mask of corporate luxury.
We are living with first-class criminals. Diamond plastic, larger than life. All eyes on you, so magnetic. You moneymaker, so productive.
What separates this from your common anti-capitalist reading that you see all over Twitch these days, here the issue isn't just simplified down to money equal bad, profit equal bad. Rather, it takes the obvious fact of money and cash being the lifeblood of the system and points out the false sense that the only thing that has any meaning is production and the increase of wealth. AKA, the corporate model of all that matters is making your shareholders more money, no matter how much you have to fuck your employees and customers in the ass to get there. But also, because of its more vague context, it brings attention to the lie of politicians who don't take bribes. The first-class criminals line can really point to anything depending on which lens or viewpoint you see it from. Capitalists in general if you come from a more Marxist lens, central bankers and the Fed if you want to view it through a more right-wing angle, as well as even just people who play the system if you sit towards more the center. And from an apolitical lens, you'll probably think of all those greasy influencers across both sides of the political aisle. People who play into the divide and promise that their bullshit support of whichever asshole is running for office or whatever social cause they're pushing will magically fix the issue, even though they themselves are nothing more than a two-faced grifter after your money, whatever sponsorship they can get, and pushing the divide that keeps their numbers running upwards. And if you think this is all a bit of an ass pull from what is an incredibly vague statement, it's all but confirmed in the EP's following track, American Trash. An electro-industrial track that revels in seething disgust of the corporate-controlled hellscape that we call the First World.
I've got this planet in my hands. You know I'll waste it if I can. Come on, let's give it a twist. And if it all turns to shit, oh wait, let's try that again. My life's too short to have a plan.
I've got this planet in my hands. Yeah, I'll try to save it if I can. I'm satisfied with myself, don't care for anyone else. I'm united when I stand. I get my facts from the TV. Believe in everything I read. It's such an ignorant bliss when the whole fucking world wants to be like me.
The song and its accompanying video are masterclasses in mean-spirited satire, mocking celebrities who peddle propaganda in the name of altruism, while in turn living a life of excess, substance abuse, and self-worship. Or, as the band calls them, American Trash. It's honestly kind of crazy that this thing was made back in early 2011, considering just how much it embodies the influencer culture that wouldn't come to be until the late 2010s, when content creation became such a big deal in modern society. The next song comes as a bit of a change of pace, with a slower tempo and much less harsh approach. Here we see Patrick grieve over the loss of his time, relationships, and life for the sake of touring. A much more personal track than what we've become accustomed to. Although it's easy to look at the lyrics of the song in a more contextual sense as the regret many celebrities and businessmen would feel for sacrificing what's truly important in life, to live their lives of excess and work careers in a field that separates them from the general population, something even Billie Eilish has talked about in recent years. I think this is one of the songs that more breaks the character and has some brief humanization, as this came after years and years of IPS's social criticism and playing tons of tours, being away from home all the time, and, well, I think it's just here to wholeheartedly show us how things affected them. Now, that being said, Not Getting Better is the second to last song on the EP, and this brings us right back into the social critique. It's also the closest the band ever came to writing a pop song, though outside of this there isn't much else to say about this track that can't be said about the last one. It's just bemoaning and a bit more in character with the rest of the social satire in its love loss and frustration with life. Now, it's Squid, the last song that the band would drop and closer to the EP that really ties this entire project together in what it was warning us of.
Sound alarms, there's no turning this around. The days are dragging out, don't you love it? Hand in hand the human race, lost emotion on their face, 'cause no one ever got what
Squid is a subdued and somber track describing the boring woes of suburban life. Patrick describes the life most claim to want, that of a nuclear family in a nice house, only to find that he still wants more out of life. Despite the comfort and safety in his decision, it's all left him bored and remorse over not chasing his dreams, neglecting to search for what really would make him happy and fulfilled in his life.
You think you had it figured out. 2-car garage in a beautiful house. Same routine keeps your feet to the ground. You're boring me to death.
This short but sweet verse cuts to the core of the issue, the lack of fulfillment that comes from only pursuing the version of success that consumerism promises. But it's the chorus where things truly come to full fruition.
Hello, morning sound alarms. There's not turning this around. The days are dragging out, don't you love it? Hand in hand, the human race lost emotion on their face, 'cause no one ever got what they wanted. Don't worry now.
The realization that until you die, you're a prisoner to that alarm clock, to that corporate job, that expensive mortgage that wasn't even worth the money you paid for it. The song is about living life like it's Groundhog Day, looping the weeks together in a meaningless and boring slog of an existence, where consumerism and hedonistic pleasure are all that's left to numb the feelings of regret and discontent for the life that you could have lived if you just had the chance. And this is the bitter conclusion that the EP ends with, leaving us once again in the darkness of the decaying society that we call the First World.
Hello, we are in a party system.
What's going on, Australia? This is Jared. This is Patrick. We're an INNERPARTYSYSTEM, system, and we can't tell you enough how excited we are to come to your country. It's so cold here right now. I'm sure you can see the camera shaking. Totally over the weather. I'd rather experience some new animals. The only thing we see here, deer, squirrels. It's boring. I want to see kangaroos and all kinds of other assorted marsupials that your country has to offer. I think it's going to be a great time. We're going to come down and we're going to party with you guys, and we'll see you in February.
INNERPARTYSYSTEM would sadly come to an end after this EP, shelving their second full-length record, something rumored to be called All the Rest. But sadly, we would never get to hear it, and they would opt to halt all band activities and go on an indefinite hiatus not long after the release of Never Be Content. And this hiatus still holds today. As you've heard throughout this video, IPS is a band that really had everything they needed to be a massive deal. Their music was unique, but it was still something that held mass appeal. It was genre-bending and experimental, but always carried enough of a pop element that made it ear-catching and hypnotic. And that's not even mentioning the band's very defined and eye-catching aesthetic and look. The highly edited videos, the anti-establishment lyrics, and ability to appeal to so many different demographics from pop radio listeners, rock fans, industrial heads, and especially with their final EP, even the growing EDM scene of the time. The sad reality is that INNERPARTYSYSTEM was basically sabotaged from the word go. They only got signed to Island Records due to being picked up by Fall Out Boy singer Patrick Stump. And due to this, and possibly the label being aware of the band's previous project that was more metal and alternative focus, they would end up being doomed to play to an audience unfit for their music, constantly being thrown on tours with various emo and post-hardcore bands at the time. And no shade to that genre, I fucking love post-hardcore, but let's be honest, your average Thursday fan isn't looking for some electronic rock band who borders on EDM and industrial rock to get into. By continually pushing them into these mismatched scenes, it essentially barred them from ever forming a proper fan base and growing in a more defined direction. And in their latter career, the EDM shift came a little bit too late. And now propping them up next to more rave-oriented artists and fan bases would again not gel well with the mismatched fan base that they had already acquired, and well, it was all just too little too late, which is a complete shame. Because I've tried to make it clear throughout this entire video that IPS was a band that deserved fame, recognition, and acclaim. They were pioneers, visionaries, creating not just great music, but beautiful and amazing videos to go along with their music, further building the world and presenting a message that was actually profound and meant something more than just, oh my god, my girlfriend dumped me, or hey, fight the power, man. There was something much more palpable and prophetic to it, and it really captivated many of the issues and, sadly, very real oppressive systems that would come just a little over a decade later. As the title states, the entire thing was a message of a warning, a message of a horrible future that no one wants to be in. And sadly, it was a warning that we ignored. But I hope that this video at least gave you some great music to listen to. Because as we further descend into the AI, materialism, consumer hellscape that we call the 2020s, at least you got a new band to listen to that's pretty fucking good. But all jokes aside, INNERPARTYSYSTEM is an incredibly underloved band. And they're one that deserves far more attention and admiration than they ever got. And as time goes on, it only becomes more clear just how relevant they really were. Now, before you go, there is just one more thing I'd like to show you. This is my wall of shame. The list of names who pay me and keep me here making more and more videos and giving me a semblance of hope that one day I can escape the confines of corporate life. But in all seriousness, I can't thank you all enough for the support. I've got a lot of projects I'm working on, more music. Obviously, I've got a shit ton of videos that I've been teasing on my Patreon. So if you want to see some of those, go there. You'll get thumbnails early, you'll get previews early, all that bullshit. But there's just a lot of stuff that I've been working on. This one in particular, I wanted to do for a while now because I had originally made an INNERPARTYSYSTEM video way back when I first started. I think it was like my 6th or 7th video or something like that. But it was terrible. I've wanted to redo it for a long time and just go way more in depth on a lot of the points I was trying to make, revamp the script, fix a lot of the errors I got with the information and all that stuff. So here's the culmination of that. But with all that being said, again, thank you everyone. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.